What is going on, everyone? Trust the buzz here. If you're new to the channel, I make Charlotte Hornets content, so if that interests you, make sure you go ahead and hit the subscribe button down below. Sorry for the Atlanta United shirt. You know, as someone that lives in Georgia, I got the shirt before Charlotte FC was a thing. I need to get some Charlotte FC merch, but anyway, just excuse it. Don't pay attention to it. But anyway, in today's video, if you cannot tell by the thumbnail or title, in today's video, we're going to be talking about the Hornets' last two games, the back-to-back. You know how I usually do. I don't really do game recaps like that. I kind of let a few games pass and kind of talk about it like that, and usually do some videos in between. Life has been extremely busy, so I haven't been able to do like the deep dives and things I was planning to do. However, those videos will come, so please stay tuned for that. But I mean, the back-to-backs against the Pacers and the Mavericks, both on the road, were probably some of the best games I think we've played this season, even including the Hawks game. To me, that game wasn't that good. Like the Hawks game, people played well. As a team, we obviously won the game, but that wasn't really one of our best games. I think our two best games so far of this season have been these games on the back-to-back. Starting off with the Pacers game, I really didn't get to catch much of it until the very end. So shout out to LaMelo for locking up Tyrese Halliburton because they got the switch. I know they were really fighting to not have that switch, but they ended up getting a switch of LaMelo on Tyrese, and LaMelo did a good job of poking the ball loose. So shout outs to LaMelo for go ahead and kind of like just embracing that defensive side of the ball. That is why one of the reasons I'm so hard on him is just because of the fact that I know what type of player he can be. And a lot of times when I have negative things to say about LaMelo, specifically LaMelo, it's never in regard to talent. It's never in regard to just in general, like how good he is. It's always just, I feel like he's just made a bonehead decision. I feel like his decision making could be better at times. I feel like, you know, sometimes he just doesn't give as much effort as you would like him to, but it's never been a case of his talent. I know what he can do. I just would like to see him do it, you know, more times than not. Now I get it. 82 game season is hard to get up for every game. However, being where the Charlotte Hornets are, you're a star. You got to find it, you know, in times when it's hard to find it. And I couldn't imagine in the Pacers game, he was shooting like crap. Like he was not hitting his shots. Of course, he was doing everything else extremely well, but he just was not hitting his shots. He hit a couple of threes, I believe, at the end, if I'm not mistaken. I might be getting it mixed with the Mavs game, but he showed up on defense on the last possession. That is the type of player that LaMelo is. That's the type what makes you a superstar. Is if you're not affecting the game in one way, that may be your key thing. Find other ways to impact the game, and he did just that. You know, by locking up. And then speaking of that, Mark Willliams being perfect from the field, I think that's another. I think he was perfect back-to-back nights. So Mark Willliams has been just tremendous for us. I know like probably his worst game was the Pistons game, which that game was just a rough game for the whole team, and he was kind of getting bullied, but I haven't really seen him get bullied like that since. So I think that's a good start. I really was interested to see how he bounced back, and I think he's bounced back pretty well. So shout out to Mark Willliams for doing that. But moving from the Pacers game to the Mavs game necessarily, really I just want to talk about what I saw. We're not here to talk about stats or anything. You know how I do. I like to talk about like the players. What are they doing in general? So here we are without Terry going against a Mavs team who was undefeated until they played the Denver Nuggets, who, of course, are the reigning champions. So that's never an easy matchup. But I think they held in there pretty well. I mean, it was like an in-season tournament game for them, but then they held in pretty well. So I was definitely interested to see what it would be like with us going against them, because that's a team that I feel as though is going to be better than a lot of people think. I'm actually a big fan of like kind of what they have. I think they could be, like I said, be better than a lot of people think. They are missing some things here and there, but Derek Lively has been huge for them. And Kyrie really hasn't even hit his stride yet. So that's a scary thing about that team. But overall, I think they're a pretty good team. So seeing how the Hornets would match up with them, missing Terry, missing Miles, I was looking forward to it. And the Hornets did not disappoint. We came out the gate swinging. We were able to get like an early 13, 15-point lead, and I believe that everyone was doing their part. PJ was just tremendous early and often in the game, just kind of getting to the basket. That little floater he hits like in like the 5 to 10 foot range is tremendous. Like it feels like it goes in every time. And then Gordon Hayward was finding the open spots in the defense and taking advantage of those and capitalizing on those weaknesses. Because one thing about the Mavericks is one of their biggest thing is their defense. Now Derek Lively, I feel like, has done a tremendous job of kind of helping that, but they still are not quite where they want to be. Josh Green is another guy they kind of look forward to that, and he's been doing pretty decent as well. But overall, I just wouldn't say that their defense is all that great. And Gordon Hayward did a good job of taking advantage of those moments. LaMelo Ball still wasn't hitting, but he had like 10 assists at half. So he was playmaking. He was putting penetration on the offense, or on the defense rather, which that is what is going to open up for these guys. And we saw that guys were hitting shots, guys were open. Even Brandon Miller was not hitting. So you had your backcourt, because this was Brandon Miller's first start. You had your backcourt not hitting, but we still had a 15-point lead until, the third quarter happened. So that shows you how dangerous LaMelo can be. If he could just make the defense pay attention to him, it's going to open up the floor for everybody else. And I feel like he was doing that, and he was diming in that first half. And I do want to talk about briefly about the comments that Gordon Hayward made, I think after the Rockets game, if I'm not mistaken, where he was saying, LaMelo needs to kind of pass the ball. And I saw a lot of people take that out of context. And I hate to be the guy that always defend people, especially Gordon Hayward. But I really felt as though he was more so saying, let the game come to you. Once you start opening up the game for others, then that will open up the game for you. I think that's kind of what he was saying. And I know a lot of people are saying he's telling LaMelo not to shoot. Don't quite think that was the case. I think it was just more so, you do not have to force it. Of course, don't shoot. But if you continue to play the way you are, you attack the basket, you do certain things, everybody else will get open. Once everybody else gets open, they'll start hitting. Once they start hitting, you can take over. And we saw that. We literally saw that in the Mavs game last night, where LaMelo was diming the whole first half, was able to get guys open. And then in the fourth quarter, he dropped 23 points, and he was going crazy. He was attacking the basket. He looked very strong and confident when he was lifting off. I think that he really didn't have much plays that was really ran from him. It was just kind of him making the most out of nothing. And I think that's a really good job. He was doing a great job of that. It started off with like him hitting a couple of threes, and then it just opened up from there. And that, I feel like, is what Gordon Hayward was saying, is like the offense is going to open up for you once you start hitting threes. Boom, now you can start attacking the basket, because everybody's going to have to play you close, and LaMelo's pretty quick. So he was able to get past a few guys, and especially Luka, who was trying to like really bully him, and Luka was kind of getting some calls, and he didn't like it. I think he got a technical for it. So that also helped us in the game, but ultimately we ended up not winning. But I mean, really, if we want to talk about why we didn't win, that third quarter was rough. That third quarter was... I never want to see Bill Kennedy, and I know it's impossible, but I never want to see Bill Kennedy officiate another Hornets game ever, because the calls we were getting here was very reminiscent of the calls we were getting against the Detroit Pistons, and the only remaining factor from that was Bill Kennedy. So it's rough. It's rough. I don't know if he hates the Hornets. I don't know if just that we don't get away with some of the stuff other teams get away with, but that's really what it seemed like. We weren't getting away with a lot of things that the Pistons in that game, and even the Mavericks was getting away in this game. It wasn't as obvious, and it wasn't as bad as the Pistons game, but it definitely was a turn of events, because our 15-point lead, I think maybe 11-point lead at that time, dwindled down to like 3. And we had a defensive lineup out there. So there really wasn't many places to go as far as like scoring the ball. However, I do feel like that lineup was actually pretty good. They were just getting every single call called on them. So they're really hard for them to even play defense. Like we saw T.O. Maladon get hit in the face twice, and I think one of the times he was called for a foul, and the other time nothing was called. So he was on offense, I believe, the second time he got hit in the face. So it was just rough for him, and we just weren't getting some of the calls that the Dallas Mavericks were getting. So it was a little frustrating. However, we were still able to maintain in the game. But then I feel like not only with Gordon Hayward, but I feel like a lot of our starters, Steve Clifford sat them way too long, because we saw that league dwindle like quick. It was dwindling quickly, and I just don't understand why you see that happening and you refusing to put the guys out there. I don't understand how you see how quick we're losing our lead, but yet you're not putting out our starters. And overall, I mean, it wasn't Luka killing us. I think, which quickly shifting to that, Brandon Miller did an excellent job on Luka Doncic. He had held Luka to 8 for 19, 1 for 9 from 3, was getting Luka frustrated. I think Brandon Miller did an excellent job. While he, his offensive numbers may not look as good as we've basically grown accustomed to seeing, I still feel like on the defensive end, he really had Luka frustrated. Luka wasn't making his shots. And also I would like to mention Luka's game it's special because the type of shots he hits, it's hard to defend him because you don't know what he's going to do. And he does something that's like not usual and then hits the shot. So it's not like he's like that really hard to guard. It's a matter of, can you bother him enough? That's the hard part. Luka's really hard to bother. He's really hard to really get in his face, the way he's able to fade, the way he's able to create. If you can really stay in front of him, you could maybe make a miss. That's the thing, though. There's not really much you can do when guarding Luka. But the science behind it is really not that difficult. It's just a matter of he's so good. He's so just zoned in and focused that really not much contact. You putting a hand in his face really doesn't bother him. That wasn't the case last night. Brandon Miller did an excellent job of just getting in Luka's face and bothering him. And as we saw down the stretch, once Brandon Miller kind of at times was not guarding him, we saw Luka hit these turnaround jumpers over and over and over again. So that's kind of where he got a majority of his baskets. But for the most part, I think Brandon Miller did an excellent job of guarding Luka Doncic, despite what the stats say. And also going into that fourth quarter, it was frustrating because, like I said, back to how Steve Clifford left the starters out way too long. As the lead's going down, he finally waits to we're either down one or we're up one. Finally brings all the starters, a majority of the starters back in. And that is when the Gordon Hayward show starts. And by show, I mean meltdown. He comes off the bench, and like I said, he was on the bench way too long, but he's just missing everything to the point where the Dallas Mavericks are leaving him wide open. And towards the end of the game, he was scared to shoot. Like it got that bad. And I know I said on Twitter about why are we force feeding not Luka, but Gordon? People were saying he's open. I got it. I used the wrong word. They weren't force feeding him. He was wide open. However, you have LaMelo in that point going nuclear. Like, LaMelo's going stupid at this point. Mark Williams has just every look he's had at the basket has been a good look. I know it's a 2-pointer, and at the time the Mavs were hitting a lot of threes. So once you start trading 2 for 3s, the game's over. So I kind of get it to an extent, but still, he had almost anything he wanted for the most part. And then PJ Washington was actually scoring extremely well too, and didn't really get to see much of that once he came off the bench originally. So. And then also at the end, he even got hurt. But it just didn't make sense to me why we're still getting Gordon Hayward the ball. Because a lot of times we were still down 1, down 2, and we're hitting Gordon Hayward open in the corner for 3. He just was not hitting. He couldn't hit even a little floater he tried to hit. He didn't got the rebound and still couldn't hit it because the original shot got blocked. He gets it back. He's right in front of the goal. He puts it up, misses. And I think Mark Williams cleans it up and finishes it for him. But still, it's just Gordon Hayward was just not in the zone. And then that's why it just didn't make sense to me because, yes, they're leaving him open. Yes, for the most part, Gordon Hayward's a pretty efficient scorer in my opinion, but he just wasn't hitting in that moment. And I think as a team, as a coaching staff, you got to adjust. LaMelo has the hot hand. We see time and time again, Terry has the hot hand. Gordon Hayward has the hot hand. We're running plays for them every time down the court. This time, LaMelo has the hot hand. PJ really hasn't put the ball up, but before, at least try, he had the hot hand. I think he hit a 3 at the end of the game as well to kind of keep it close, if I'm not mistaken. And we're not doing anything to get them the ball. Of course, LaMelo's going to have the ball off rip point guard, but in general, we're not doing anything to get him the ball. If you look at, I know I said Brandon Miller didn't shoot well, but if you look at his shots, some of them, the shot clock was going down. He was forced to put it up. It was just things like that. A couple of his shots were forced. So even then, with Gordon Hayward missing 3 to 4 wide open shots in a row, I have other guys I would rather trust in that moment, considering he's not hitting. Let's get something easy so we can get his rhythm back. But they were leaving him wide open on the perimeter. Gordon would stay on the perimeter, shoot, and miss. It just is what it was. He really wasn't even hitting in the mid range, which. That's one thing I actually really enjoy about his game in comparison for our team is that we have someone that can operate and feel so comfortable in the mid-range, whether it's off screens or even sometimes creating for himself. Gordon Hayward, I think, is exceptional at doing that. But right now, he just was not hitting, and we continue to feed him the ball. I get it. He like I said, more times than not, he may hit those, but he just wasn't. So I don't understand why we waited so late to pivot. And even then, we didn't even try to pivot. It was more so that's just how the game rolled. The ball just rolled that way to the point where LaMelo's getting the ball more and more. But we weren't doing anything to actively get LaMelo the ball, actively get PJ the ball, or Brandon even. At that point, I would have kept Gordon Hayward in because of his veteran leadership. We do need that. There was places in time where we were trying to run up the floor and Gordon was able to have us slow down. We need that. That was important in that moment because you don't want to get in a running battle with a team that has Luka, especially if for whatever reason he were to get hot. I get that. But continuously giving him the ball, even though he's open, and then to the point, like I said, where he got scared, it really blew the game. I personally think that really threw the game because we didn't adjust. And speaking of not adjusting, one thing I really don't understand, and as we wrap up here, is at the very end, we're trying to do the inbound play. One, Brandon Miller should not be the one taking up the ball. We hide rookies from everything. We're always like, oh, well, he's a rookie. He's got to learn. The Charlotte Hornets as an organization does their best job to make sure rookies are in particular situations. The reason Mark had to wait so long last year in the G League is because they felt like he wasn't ready. But all of a sudden, now this is a great time to put a rookie in as an inbounder with no timeouts with a sorry play call. Like, that didn't make any sense. I don't like the design. I get the design. Shout out to my guy Ben on Twitter. I wish I could remember his whole Twitter handle, but he kind of pointed out to me because originally I thought, first seeing the play, I thought it was a play for Gordon. Well, when I first saw that out of bounds play, I thought it was for LaMelo. But then LaMelo got out to the perimeter so slow, I was like, I don't know if that was really for LaMelo, so I thought it was for Gordon. And Ben pointed out that it was for LaMelo. So at that point, I don't know if LaMelo was slow getting out there. I don't know if that the bundle of screens didn't work because Mark didn't set the best screen. LaMelo didn't really set a good screen. LaMelo shouldn't be setting screens in general, but he didn't set a good screen. It just didn't make any sense. The play didn't make any sense to me. And then you had Taylor Maldon on the floor who, considering Terry's out, considering PJ was hurt at this point, that probably is your best lineup if something were to happen. Taylor was actually kind of hitting this game, so you kind of take that. But he didn't really add anything to the play. Gordon Hayward didn't really add anything to the play. I think they thought Gordon Hayward would kind of pull people away, but he hasn't been hitting all fourth quarter. So I don't think that really had the effect they were hoping it would have. And then, like I said, Mark didn't set a good screen, kind of like they were like on the elbow, maybe a little bit on the left elbow, and LaMelo couldn't get out to the corner fast enough. So it was just a poorly designed play. And then, as you saw, it was the fastest 5-second, whatever it's called, I've ever seen. It was the quickest 5 seconds I'd ever seen, but it was just a weird play. I know that the execution was not where we would like it, but still, I think a better play call could have been designed. Getting LaMelo kind of in the corner like that, even then, I don't think that would have been good. I know the corner is a good, one of the best shots in the NBA, but the way they were designed to how LaMelo would get the ball, I think that you would need to be a little more forceful. I would have even take out Teo and maybe put in Nick Richards to forcibly get LaMelo open. I'm not no coach. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. But I'm saying that as far as what I saw, what they were trying to do, it didn't work. It didn't work. And I don't know if they tried to like remix it because they didn't have their original personnel or what, but it just did not look like a good play call. And I mean, to Dallas' credit, they played it very well. Like, as soon as LaMelo was able to cut out a little bit, Luka dropped back from Brandon Miller and then, kind of got on LaMelo, so Brandon couldn't pass it to LaMelo. So, as much as was a failure from the Charlotte Hornets, I think the Mavericks did a good job defending it. But overall, this is probably the best we've played all season. I like what we see. Hopefully, this is a sign that LaMelo is back. He looked really confident in his shot. Even before, he just didn't look too confident. I know he's missing, but it also, you can see the lack of confidence in his shot. He looked a little more confident, in that late last night. So hopefully this is a sign for things to come. Terry's questionable. He was questionable for last night, so I don't know what that means for Wednesday when we play the Wizards. But we're only 4 games away before Miles is back. But if this team continues to play this way, I will be a lot more happy with the product I see on the floor as opposed to what I put on the podcast, which I'll be uploading that. It's going to be old. I'll preface that. I just forgot to upload it to the channel, but I uploaded it on the podcast feed. So basically, it was just a video of me talking about how I was disappointed in the last 3 games before the Pacer game. So you'll be seeing that, but I will put a disclaimer that that's an old video. That's not my current thoughts. My current thoughts is if this team continues to play this way, we are the team I was kind of hoping, which is a team that's just floating around a playoff spot, good enough to where we're good enough to where we need to get lucky, but we could still make the playoffs, if that makes any sense. I don't think we're good enough to, okay, this is a playoff team, but we are good enough to put ourselves in a position to where if some other things happen, we can see ourselves in a playoff. So, there's still a lot of season to go, only 6 games, but we look just a lot more engaged in this game, and I really appreciate that. That's all I really want. These type of losses, I can deal with.